Now then, Vinyl Monkey again. 1970. Well, yeah, what a year for music, what a year, as we'll find out. And just a couple of quick comments before we start. I suppose it's an apology. You would think I would do this on the basis that I'm including every album I've got behind me here in the particular year, but my cataloguing system, unfortunately, like most systems I ever endeavour to put together, is far from perfect. And after I'd done 1969 last week, I realised that I'd totally not realised that I had a couple of really cracking albums from 1969 that I hadn't even thought about, and that was Fleetwood Mac's Pious Bird of Good Omen and the Bee Gees' brilliant double album Odessa, which is surely would have sneaked into my top 10, although I don't know what I would have left out. But anyway, I'm trying my best to overcome these problems. I will have to try and set up some sort of better cataloguing system and try and keep it up to date. But anyway, here we go. So it's 1970 again, just a brilliant year for music. I could have had the top 30 or 40 out of the albums here, and they would have all been great albums. I've had to leave out, I don't know why, some of my favourite albums of all time. I've left out the Groundhogs, Thank Christ for the Bomb, the brilliant thing. Van Morrison's one of his great albums, Moon Dance, that's left out. My favourite Lindisfarne album, and I was certain I would have got this one in my top 10, but I didn't. Nicely out of tune. Free's great Fire and Water. I had Free's second album in last week, and I think this is even stronger, but I've just got that many great albums from 1970. Elton John's brilliant Tumbleweed Connection. Soft Machines third, which I had it in there, but I listened to it a couple of times this week, and I don't know. It's just. I think if they'd done this as an instrumental, I would have probably had it. Some really interesting sort of jazz, rock, fusion sort of stuff on here. But it's the vocals that sort of irritate me a little bit. Sorry, Robert Wyatt, that is. But Eric Burden's Black Man's Burden, yes, really good, strong stuff. 10 years after the great blues album. And loads more. So I'll get on with my top 10, and where are we? Oh, it's behind me there. At number 10, this is Derek and the Dominoes. This is Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. This is, for me, Clapton's very, very best work. He's gone under the guise of Derek and the Dominoes. I'd mentioned, I think, last week that he'd broken Cream up on Here in the Band, music from Big Pink, and he'd gone off sort of searching a new musical direction. He joined he'd formed the sort of so-called supergroup Blind Faith, who had only had the one album and a very brief life, and but he was obviously searching. He'd been touring with Delaney and Bonnie, and he'd also become totally infatuated with his friend George Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd, and this is the result of this. This is some of the musicians he worked with on Delaney and Bonnie, plus Duane Allman, and it's just a lovely collection of laid-back blues. About half of them Clapton involved with, often with Bobby Whitlock, the keyboard player. He was involved in writing them. Some of them are sort of blues standards, but it's just, there are some really strong standout moments. Obviously the single Layla, I love Bell Bottom Blues, I love the opening track I Looked Away, but generally all the way through it's just a really easy, nice, bluesy, laid back album to listen to. Clapton's best, as I say, so that's my number 10. My number 9 is Stephen Stills. Previous year to this, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young had broken up, or was it 2 years before this? Anyway, a year or two before this, late 60s, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young had broken up, and all of them produced brilliant solo albums. This was Stephen Stills' first. I think by this time Neil Young was already onto his third, but yeah, this is Stills Fest, and it's just chock full of really strong songs. This remains apparently the only album that both Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix both appear on, although not together. They sort of feature, a bit of a cameo really, they feature on one song each. There's I think some really good use of horns on here. The songs I really like: Church, Old Times, Good Times, the opener on side 2, Sit Yourself Down, and the closer, We Are Not Helpless. But yeah, really strong album. So I've included it in my top 10 at number 9. That's Stephen Stills, his debut album. My number 8, what an album this is. This is Santana's second album. This is one of a number of, well, they brought out 3 albums in quick succession that were just brilliant. A fusion of Latin, Afro-American, jazz, rock. Carlos Santana, born in Mexico, living then, I think, on the west coast of America, formed the band. Brilliant musicians, not only Santana's guitar, but brilliant piano, brilliant percussion, leading to this sort of fairly unique but really outstanding sound. I mean, sonically, this is just an absolute joy to listen to. As I say, it's one of 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 albums in the 70s that were all cracking albums, but I've included it as my number 8. It's their second album. It's Abraxas. I'll mention the artist on the front, or I would do if I could remember his name. It's he's credited as Mati here, M-A-T-I. He's French, German-born artist, and this was, I think, one of his early paintings from 1961 that Carlos Santana had seen and got permission to use. But interestingly, he was Marty. I'll remember his second name hopefully by the end of this video. He was commissioned to do other albums, and there's an album later on in my list that again, really interesting artwork. So that's my number 8, Santana, Abraxas. My number 7, this is Curtis Mayfield. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful suit, Curtis, but also beautiful psychedelic funk, and it's political. He's addressing race and inequality and racism, but he's promoting togetherness, peace, love, togetherness, positivity. Outstanding tracks, Move On Up being the obvious one. There's an extended version of that, but all the way through it, even the opener, Don't Worry If There's a Hell Below, We're All Gonna Go, sort of promoting this, we're all going to hell in a handcart, we're all together, we're all the same. Really, really positive stuff. Just an absolutely outstanding album. It's hard-edged on the one hand, but it's so sweet-voiced on the other. I mean, I think he's some sort of soul hippie, really, Curtis Mayfield, but a genius, and that's a brilliant album. My number 7. My number 6, I've already mentioned Neil Young, and this is his third album. This is After the Gold Rush. Great picture of Neil on the inside cover. Laid back and relaxed, but this is just beautiful. Neil Young's aching voice, gorgeous melodies. It includes the epic Southern Man, which sort of addressed sort of racial violence at the time and famously got a reaction from the South, from Lynyrd Skynyrd. But lovely stuff. After the Gold Rush, the title track, of course. Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Gorgeous, absolutely lovely stuff. Let me see what else is on here. Yeah, Don't Let It Bring You Down. Yeah, just beautiful, beginning to end. Lovely album. Neil Young's third. He never made a bad album. He made some experimental albums, but he never made a bad album, and he never made a bad sounding album. They all sound absolutely fantastic, including he's reissuing some of the stuff from this period, or he has been over the last 10 years or so, digging it out of the vault, stuff that never made the They never made it onto plastic at the time, but and all of it sounds really, really great. So this is my number 6, Neil Young, After the Gold Rush. My number 5, this is a band you might not be familiar with. This is Fotheringay. Look at that lovely hippie folky suits they're all depicted in on the front cover. There's a picture of the band on the inside live. This is really about the singer-songwriter Sandy Denny. Some would argue Britain's greatest female singer-songwriter ever. Fairport Convention had broken up. They'd had a series of great albums at the end of the 60s. Sandy Denny had formed Fotheringay with their then boyfriend Trevor Lucas, and this was the result. This was their only album, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's hard to come by now. I was sort of lucky to get hold of a copy of this, I think, but it's just a beautiful folky sound, electric folky sound. The bass is gorgeous, and there's some beautiful restrained lead guitar, but it's Sandy Denny's voice. She writes about half the songs, or maybe a bit more than half the songs on here, but it's her voice, that sort of melancholic, sad but beautiful voice, and you just want to fall in love with Sandy Denny on hearing it, really. You don't have to see her. It's just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, that's my number 5, Fotheringay, named after a castle in the Midlands somewhere, I think, where Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned and I think executed as well. But anyway, there we are. Now my number 4, God, this is one, isn't it? Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Everybody knows this album. This is Black Sabbath's second album. It's their second album of 1970, actually. It was produced only, or they were in the studio within months of releasing their debut album, and this was the result. And this is often credited as being the sort of birth of heavy metal. So, it's Ozzy Osbourne on vocals, Tony Iommi on bass, Bill Ward on drums, Geezer Butler on bass. Did I say Tony Iommi on bass? Tony Iommi on lead, obviously. And yeah, just what a band. And this, I think, for me, this is my favourite album of theirs. You just have to go through side 1. War Pigs, the opening track, I think it was going to be the title of the album, but they changed it for the American market, so I've read, because the Vietnam War was raging and they didn't want to put people off by making it, potentially a political sort of statement. So they relegated War Pigs to just one of the tracks and called it Paranoid, which became the single from the album. But War Pigs, yeah, generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Yeah, terrible. And Ozzy can sing marginally better than me, but he has this otherworldly sort of voice that just fits, with Iommi's sort of grungy riffs and the sort of toned down and pounding sort of rhythm section. Side 1 is absolute genius. So it starts with War Pigs with that dreadful rhyming masses with masses, which is, you would think it would be unforgivable sort of stuff like that, but you've got to forgive it on here, partly because of the sort of riffs that go alongside it. But then next, Paranoid itself, then Planet Caravan, a sort of spacey, jazzy, weird sort of thing, but somehow it works. And then lastly, the brilliant Iron Man, again with its sort of stupendous sort of heavy, deep riffs that you just stick in your mind forever, really. Side 2 carries on. It's not as strong as side 1, but overall it's just a brilliant album, a landmark album. Black Sabbath, Paranoid, my number 4. My number 3, this is George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. George was just absolutely brimful of songs. He must have been so frustrated in the Beatles, only being allowed 1 or 2 songs on each of their later albums, and he's sat on all these brilliant songs, and he's brought out this what was the first ever triple album of original material. Oh, I've got to say, I and probably most people sort of dispensed with largely the third album, which was a sort of jam session, extended jam sessions with some of the musicians who went on to be involved in the Derek and Dominoes project actually. But anyway, I'll concentrate on the first two albums. The Four Sides of Here are just absolutely superb. The first 6 songs themselves, I'd Have You Anytime, My Sweet Lord, Wah Wah, Isn't It a Pity, What Is Life, and If Not For You. Those first 6 songs, absolutely stunning. If there's a bit of a lull, it might be side 3 for me, but then it finishes off really, really strongly again. Art of Dying and Isn't It a Pity, version 2, just superb stuff. And yeah, I mean, as I say, it must have been so frustrating for George to stand behind the giant egos of John and Paul in the Beatles and have this. But this is evidence of what the Beatles missed, really, if they'd have stayed together and George had been a more equal partner. Lovely album. All Things Must Pass, my number 3. My number 2 is also a former Beatle, John Lennon, Plastic Ono Band. Big photo of John on the inside and on the back, and this is Lennon's debut album. It's let me see. The inside. Yeah. No, I didn't want to get. I wanted the track list, which I haven't got. But this is just anyway. This is just an absolute emotional roller coaster. It's John Lennon at his rawest, his most emotional, his most personal. He's bearing his soul. He's been going through some sort of therapy, but he just, the opening track, Mother, is absolutely heartbreaking. It's almost too much to listen to. It really tears you apart, but then the second track he comes on and he sort of it lifts you back up, or it holds you up temporarily, and then you're wrenched apart again, and it's like that the whole way through. It's just an absolutely, as I say, emotional roller coaster. A great piece of art. John Lennon has just given everything he's got for this album. The band are absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's only the 3 of them. There's John Lennon, Klaus Voormann on bass and Ringo Starr on drums, but what a sound they make. Just absolutely brilliant stuff. My favourite John Lennon album, one of my favourite albums of all time, and that's my number 2. My number 1, well, what can I say about this? This is Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Directions in Music by Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. This is the other artwork by, now I'll see if he's credited properly on here. No, he's not. Anyway, the French sort of German origin artist was commissioned to do who did Abraxas was commissioned to do this. On hearing, I assume, the music, but the music on here, you would. I don't know whether, do I put this in with my rock records, do I put it in with my jazz records? It was said to be inspired by Davis listening to Hendrix, but this is, I suppose, it's jazz rock fusion, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's stunning. Nothing else like it for me. It's something that no matter how many times I've listened to it, it can feel different, it can sound different, I pick things up in it. It's complex, certainly. It's rhythmically really, really complex. I mean, he's used 2 bassists, 3 drummers, 3 keyboard players, often all at one time. Often the keyboard players playing different sort of chords, drummers playing sort of different, various sort of rhythms. And sometimes you pick up different, you pick up on a different sort of rhythm within a rhythm, if you like. It's just marvellous. It's very, very difficult for me to describe. It's a sort of collage, I think, of sonic improvisations. It produces sort of soundscapes which suggest images or shapes. It's it's absolute genius. He put Miles Davis back right at the top where he'd been before on breakthrough albums in jazz, but this was just something different again. I say absolutely stunning, and that's my number one album from 1970, one of the great landmark albums of all time. Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. That was my 1970. Hope you join me next time. Cheers.